Thank you, Jody and LTV. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for August 17th, 2021. Before we get going, I would like to welcome our new Zoning Board of Appeals Secretary, Laura McPherson. We're very happy to have Laura on board, and we thank Kyle Vorkel for all of his service. He's been wonderful. Kyle is moving in onto the clerk's office, and he's very kindly helping Laura get acclimated, so thank you, Kyle. Okay, we'll move on. First of all, we have a canceled public hearing this evening. That hearing is Nicholas Gregory. If anyone's here for that, that will not be heard. That is, I'll just read in the address. That is at 15 Shore Road, Montville-on-the-Sea, Section A, Lot 94, in Amagansett, and that will be heard at a further date. Next, we'll move on to scheduled public hearings. The first public hearing we have is Joseph M. Tontillo, and the lot size and location, 17,168 square feet at 39 Gansborough Court, Montauk Beach Development Corp., map number 1017, and Montauk tax map number 300-19-4-27.2. The description here is, pardon me as I shut my telephone off, apologies. The description is to allow an existing patio and roof overhang to remain within side yard and pyramid setbacks. The relief sought, one variance from 255-11-10 to allow a patio to remain 8.8 feet from the side yard where 10 feet is required, and one variance from 255-11-72D pyramid regulations to allow a roof overhang to remain 2 feet 2 inches beyond the relative height restriction, and any other relief necessary from the East Hampton Town Code. This is in a B residence zone. The flood zone is X, and the secret class here is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
We have an affidavit that the mailings went out on the 6th day of August, and an affidavit that the posting was done on the 6th day of August. So the paperwork appears to be in order.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Now, let's see, Terry, did you handle this one, Terry? So board member Berger will give us a field report. Thank you, Terry.
Okay. This is the official notice of posting. I was there this morning. It's properly posted. Next. Wait. Oh, is that the second one?
Yeah, get it over.
Oh, this is just a shot of the garage structure from the front of the house. The variances are required on the back, but I did want to get a sense of the character of the neighborhood. That's the garage structure, and the distance there on the right is the main portion of the house, which you'll see more of. Next. Then I just turned 180 degrees. This is the house immediately across the street. Next. This is a shot up Gainsborough Court. It ends right in a kind of a dead end. It's not even a cul-de-sac right there. And the applicants for the driveway toward the house is right past the shrubbery, that hedge. Next. And that's a shot from down toward that area, toward the end of the road, just to give you a feel for the entire property with the house, and then the garage, not the garage, but the patio in question behind that. It's a rather odd-shaped lot in some places. Next. This was a shot still from the front of the house, but I was trying to get the nearest neighbor. You see that little part of the house there on the southwest side.
It's not the bird in the tree.
No. That was just extra. Okay, next. And again, I was trying to get a feel for the shrubbery as listed in the TAM. There's a lot of shrubs and trees that you'll see more of. And again, this is still at the front part, but the patio is in the back, and next I'm going to go to the back of the house.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Around the back. And I went toward the back of the property, and you can see the corner of the covered patio that is in question for the variance tonight. Needs a side yard variance, and you can see where the patio ends up, goes toward the garage, and ultimately the covered patio attaches to the back of the garage. Next. Just trying to get a, well, it's another shot, might be a little bit better there. I was having some trouble with sun glare this morning. Next. Now this is a shot across the property from the back, near the back shrubs and toward the back property line, just to show that there is an expansive area over here. Next. And now that's kind of the whole picture, the patio, the covered patio on the right, has an outdoor kitchen and bar area. And you can see the garage roof line behind it. Next. Okay, go next. I was still trying to get that corner. So. Next. Okay, so now I'm standing at the corner of the patio and shooting from west to east, I guess it would be. You could see that that's where the variance is required. There's shrubbery to the right, and the setback currently is 8.8. So behind that shrub there, there is a fence, a short fence at the property line there.
Jared, could you go back before you go forward? Can you go back one? I just want to get another look at that last shot.
Okay, so that's the main house on the left,
Right,
and
the
you're
variance
shooting
is on
down
the
the
right.
left side. The variance is for the right side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then the next one, just went up. Well, I couldn't get the whole thing in one shot with my camera, so this is the roof overhang. At that end of the corner there, there's a 2.2 foot variance required for pyramid. There's a portion, because the property line curves, there's a portion of the roof overhang of the patio that has piercing pyramid. Next. And this is just a final shot from the outside again, just shooting over. You can see the next door neighbor's house there, so there's ample space there. And the roof line itself of the garage, which is variance, but you can see a lot of the shrubbery and plantings that are surrounding this property. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Any questions, board members, from the field report? Okay. Okay, do we have the applicant or the agent for the applicant? Good evening, Andrew.
Good evening, for Andrew Strong, for the applicant, Andrew Strong, lot 5, Boatyard Road, East Hampton, New York. Thanks very much. So I just want to briefly begin with touching on how we got here. This application comes out of a permit for a 600 square foot garage, which showed the patio and the bar, and which was built. The building department went out, inspected, and passed the property, and was only in getting the final survey that we noticed that there was a builder error, that the property came towards the rear, 2.2 feet encroached on both the pyramid and the side yard. And a lot of that is a function, if you look at the lot, just the way the lot is shaped, is how we ran into this issue. You'll see in the file a letter from the builder explaining the error, and I think that distinguishes this from a lot of these cases where the builder is willing to stand behind that problem.
Andrew, can you let us know if the builder has a license under the town of East Hampton?
I'm confident that they do, but before I commit to that position, I can follow up that. But it's a builder that I'm familiar with, so I would be very surprised if they didn't. Do you have the letter in there?
Let's see.
Yeah, we have
we
that
have
letter.
the
We have that letter.
I can follow up on that though.
Yeah, right.
The application was complicated because there was a stop work order, but I want to make the point very clearly that that stop work order was not related to this issue. The stop work order was for a completely different item. They were installing French doors, and because of a complaint, code enforcement went out. They got a stop work order to stop construction on the French doors until they permitted those. Those were permitted, and work went on. So the reason I bring that up is to strenuously avoid the characterization that this was a situation where the applicant is asking for forgiveness rather than permission. They went in and asked for permission. They went through the entire process, got final inspection from the field, and there was an error. The fact that there was a stop work order is unfortunate, but it was unrelated, and it was resolved as soon as it was raised.
So before we move on,
Yeah,
real quickly, I have the letter here in the survey. What survey was used for the building permit? So in other words, how do you make it further south? I don't know how the builder could. Well, explain. Well, I'll let you answer that question. What survey was used?
I think it was a similar survey. I just don't think it was dimensioned. I think the side yard setback, the side yard wasn't dimensioned.
It was not dimensioned.
So, when they went in.
And they gave him a permit without a setback.
They gave him he got a permit. Yeah.
And do you have that survey in the file?
We can submit it. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe you can submit that before we make our decision.
That'd be fine.
I believe the planning department may have it.
Okay, we can ask her, okay. Go continue, thanks.
Okay, no problem. I think that's the heart of the issue. I mean, from that position, the applicant, you can see from the pictures, has tried to comprehensively screen the affected neighbor, and he's actually also screened on this area as well. If you I'm not sure if there's an aerial or some of those photos show that, but there's very mature screening there that is attempted to mitigate the problem.
Mhm.
The applicant is willing to provide the town with a covenant so that screening is maintained in perpetuity. You'll also see a letter in the file showing an estimated cost of resolving the issue if you were to have to cut back the property. And I think that is $30,000. So
It looks like there's a stockade fence on the neighboring property adjacent to the property line.
I saw a deer fence on the survey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says stockade fence. That would be, yeah.
Was there any attempt on the contractor's part to correct the situation?
It was only discovered when the one was completed. When we went to close out the permit, building department came to the property, passed, and
Okay, but
we then updated
was
the
it
survey.
construction? They didn't realize they were going over farther than
They didn't.
was in
They
the
didn't. And
survey.
again, that's partly because it's a relatively small area. It's 2.2 feet, but it's only 12 linear feet that encroaches. So then it's because of the way that lot is angled. So that the total encroachment is like 24 square feet. And so it wasn't. It wasn't. And that's where you have the builder putting that in writing. He needs a little more because that does create that sort of puts his money where his mouth is.
So, sorry, well, go ahead, Terry.
Now, going back to the building permit for the garage, it was a garage with an attic containing no plumbing with rafters.
Yes.
Higher than 6 feet. And the only additional thing you said at that time that caused the stop work order was the French doors out the back of the garage, going to what?
The stop work order was for French doors. I wasn't involved in the project at that time. I called the building department this morning, and they didn't know where the French doors were, whether that was part of the house or part of the garage.
The drawing shows sliders.
Yeah.
So why would there be a stop door for French doors? Unless it's on the house.
It must have been on the house. So they must have had the people there, and a lot of people think, okay, we can just replace the doors. You can't do that without a permit. So they went and got it. And again, this is information I'm relaying that, from the building department who I spoke to this morning. So that's, maybe the town planner has more information on that. But
So I'm going to keep, just before we move on, because this is germane, obviously. So these plans, I have architectural plans from 5/14/18.
yes,
And I don't see any revision dates. So the reason it's perplexing is on these, were these a building department, building permit plans? I mean, set here?
as far as I'm aware.
Well, the reason I asked is that they show that it's encroaching on the pyramid. They show
So weird.
they show 8.8 feet
Right,
to the part of the garage, the wall there, and they have all the setbacks in the property line. It also shows that the overhang is breaking the pyramid plane, so I'm kind of confused.
well,
Are these the plans that the building department approved?
I believe they are. And again, I wasn't part of the project at that time, but I believe they are because when the survey came back, we saw the side yard variance as an issue. And so that meant we were coming in front of, we needed to get a variance. And it was only at that time that we noticed the pyramid issue. That was never caught.
Yeah, hold on a second, because the planner, Lenny,
Yes,
she's put that up. That looks like that was a building permit where it was compliant.
yeah, and when it emailed those.
Right, I know she did.
Yes,
So then, that was probably the building permit set, I imagine.
That's the one that
And Lenny's not,
That was the building-
Lenny.
permit from
So it looks, I don't know what
Oh,
these
it
are.
didn't have the overhang list that Tim says to.
Right.
So this must be, they maybe did revise the date on their drawings here, but these must be the updated drawings that show,
To show that the impression. Sure.
that must be what's going on here.
I'm happy to provide you a timeline for the plans that were submitted. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Nick.
Just to wrap up, the applicant has now vegetated, as I said, happy to provide a covenant. Just looking at the test, I'm not going to go through each prong just to save everybody some time. I know you're aware of it. But in terms of affecting the character of the neighborhood, we think this is a relatively de minimis encroachment. It's 2.2 feet. It was not intentional. And the applicant has undertaken the steps that we think most squarely address the problem. The problem is, you have an encroachment to the side yard, the affected neighbor, and one way to resolve that is to try to comprehensively screen that neighbor with mature vegetation and provide covenant in perpetuity to protect that neighbor going forward. That's the end of my prepared comments. I don't know if you-
Would it be approved? What were you willing to cover that the screening will remain, which it
Yeah.
looks like they have around the whole property, it's very nicely screened. What about that nothing else would be done on that side of the house, or no other work done that would impact that pyramid possibly?
I mean, I think anything else that's done, even changing that structure would have to come in front of this board, because that structure now is non-conforming. And so you'd be changing, I know it's in the technical analysis, but this is the first time this property has been in front of this board. If it were coming from the board a second time, I think I would be expecting a much different reaction, a much more scrutiny. So I think in terms of, is this the sort of camel's nose under the tent? And is approving this going to lead to more structures on that side of the property? It only will if we come in front of the board and it's granted.
What's that setback? What are those setbacks? Can you read it? Show right there. To the property line. Yeah. Can you read those off, Andrew? Let's see. I can't. Read those off, Andrew.
I mean,
It says 12 feet,
You can walk.
okay. This is 15. This is 12 feet and 7/8.
Why are they so different?
To the overhang. Right, that's the overhang.
Oh, yeah, so it's 12,
Yeah.
it's 12 feet, but the overhang isn't 3.5 feet.
It's not on that drawing.
It's not on that.
Yeah.
drawing.
I know, but the overhang still isn't 3.5 feet. I think the building got moved. I think the whole building got moved too. Maybe by mistake, I'm sure.
Well, the garage went up first, yes, before the patio.
Something.
From
Okay.
Andrew's saying.
Okay.
Hi.
So Andrew, before you sit down,
Yeah.
just following up on that point, I was on the site today.
Right.
It is a very heavily vegetated spot. It's well protected from the neighbor. That's not an issue. I'm willing to covenant that, which would of course be a plus. But in the letter from Benco Construction dated June 16th, there's a statement that during the course of construction, an error occurred whereby the structure was built in a way that extended further south than originally planned.
Mhm.
That sentence actually doesn't say anything.
I know.
What it just says is that there's a mistake. Is it a mistake? Or when I'm looking at these blueprints, as I did, like the prints that we had, which obviously are a follow-up with some additional information put on to explain to us the pyramid violations and also point out the 8.8 distance. It's really at variance with the print we're seeing here. And so my feeling was today when I was there, that is, I think was just mentioned by Member Berger, that perhaps a misinterpretation of where the garage originally was. Because if this was added to the garage as a separate entity, which I one,
Yeah.
Right.
and you centered it on the garage, somebody at some point thought that that was going to make it 12 feet off the property.
Right.
And it clearly is not.
Yeah.
So I'm just want to make the point that I don't know Benco Construction. I don't know if they're good or not good or reputable or anything else. But I think the comment that the mistake was made, the mistake looks like it was made far before the frame this roof.
Right.
The location of the garage was either misinterpreted or was not put where it was originally intended to be. Now, maybe it was intended to be further from the property line. So once you extended it out, we get to this far corner, and now we have our problem. We have our pyramid. We have our distance.
Mhm.
I want to agree with the chairman that there is an overhang that's not on that drawing, but it's clearly not 4 feet. It would not have affected it as dramatically as it is here. So this goes back beyond just what was done by this contractor and here. And also, just to clarify something that comes in front of us a lot, is that we keep hearing it's a contractor mistake.
Sure.
A contractor follows a drawing that's been issued. That doesn't really fall under the category of a contractor mistake. The mistake is in poor planning or for allowance. It was allowed to happen by somebody, our agency, an agency that looks at the town or someone. But in this case here, it seems to me that clearly the building is either the building when the garage is in the wrong spot, or there was complete misinterpretation by the surveyor on where it sits. So it's something to me that makes me think it's not so much that there was an error by someone with a hammer in his hand, as it was at the planning end of this whole process.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
I agree.
I appreciate that. I'm going to follow up and get information on the licensing, and I'm happy to send that in. If there's any other information that you're interested in, I'm happy to.
No, I don't, yeah, I think we probably,
close the record.
Okay.
We don't need to keep it.
I'm happy to close the record. Yeah, all right.
okay, thanks, Andrew. Now we'll hear from the planning department next. Good evening, Eleni.
Good evening, Eleni Nicolopoulos of the Planning Department.
I'll go ahead and swear you in. Eleni, please, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. So I don't have too much to add on this. I will clarify that it does appear that the stop work order was issued for the French doors, but it seems that that may have been because the building permit for the garage was expired, because the applicant at that time then renewed their building permit for the garage and then also obtained the building permit for the French doors, the roof overhang, and the patio.
Is the garage being used as a garage?
That's one thing that I can't speak to. What that might be.
Plans to enter the French doors. There is a car in there. They missed
Okay,
storage.
that's a good sign. If you have a car and motorcycle, that's a good
But
sign.
now, if you look at rafters, the ceiling of the garage is not open to the attic. That makes a difference.
I know, I mean, it's obviously not supposed to be habitable. Can you address that, Andrew?
I mean, I can say that, again, this was, that it is not habitable. The building department was on site and, to my understanding, passed this property before looking at the survey. So that means they went into the garage to make sure there's no plumbing, there's nobody living in there. Now, beyond that,
Is there a stair up to the second floor or just a hatch?
I can't.
Nothing in the drawing.
There's nothing.
So I can't speak to the fact that if the building department was out there, then one of the things you can count on them looking for is signs of habitability in terms of passing this property.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Elaine, thank you. Go ahead, continue, please.
Yeah, so I'll just add that, the property does appear to be well screened, as was discussed. And that this parcel is not otherwise constrained. There are no wetlands or no natural resources special permit associated with this. And it appears that had they followed the plans, they would have met all zoning. That's pretty much all I had to add on this. If the board has any questions specifically.
Okay,
Could you
Any
just show
questions?
us again, this plan that's up on the screen is the one that we got from the building department.
right.
Yeah, this is the
When the
building
building
permit.
permits of 922 was issued.
Yeah.
So
And everything was conforming.
everything was conformed.
So
Is this the building permit for the garage, or the building permit for the extension for the patio?
this is for the extension. This is
Yeah.
after
So at
that.
the time that this drawing
Right.
was issued, we don't have, it doesn't appear that there's going to be any pyramid violation.
Right.
Or setback problem.
Right.
So it would almost seem like there's something wrong with this drawing.
Or that they
This
built,
drawing- this is
or
the
the
one that
building
got the
permit,
permit.
I think they gave a permit and then they built the garage, the whole garage and the whole place in the wrong place. I think they did some sloppy site work there, but you know what I'm saying, Ed?
Now, Lenny, do you know if the garage part was already up,
That's
right?
what I'm saying. The garage part was already there at the time of
Oh,
the
yeah,
drawing.
this doesn't make
And
sense.
then the garage is misplaced on the survey.
Well, and.
Or they didn't have the
And you can
setbacks.
see it's the patio that has the jut out from the garage.
Yeah.
But again, back to the chair's point, it's not 4 feet. If there's a discrepancy, it would have to be in the garage as well as the patio.
And maybe the fact that that survey didn't show any setbacks, it really might have been 8.8 feet
Right.
in the survey, but the designer drew 12 feet, thinking it was 12 feet or something. It's, surveyors typically are not wrong. I always trust the surveyor. We all know they rarely get a dimension like that.
This is the as-built survey, and it does appear from the as-built survey that the garage meets the setback, so it would be,
It's just that corner of the overhang, the roof overhang, right there, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Lenny, board members?
No.
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Terry, if you'd like to. Oh, I'm sorry, anyone in the public want to speak on this application? No? Okay, Terry, if you'd like to close this out, please.
Application of Joseph and Tantillo at 39 Gainsborough Court in Montauk, map 710 300-019-04-27.2. Make motion to close the public hearing and the public record.
Yes,
Yeah.
Second.
And I concur as well. Thanks, Terry. Mr. Lenny, you're anchored, did I have to leave?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Well, there he is. I thought he hit the highway early.
I'm gonna do that now. Have a good evening.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Okay, we'll move on to our second public hearing this evening. The applicant is Gail Schoenfeld. The lot size and location is 31,963 square feet at 6 Delivery Lane, Heather Hills, Section 2, Lot 43, map number 6950, East Hampton, tax map number 300-184-5-43. The description is to allow an affordable accessory apartment in the basement of the existing house to be over the maximum allowable size. The relief sought, one variance of approximately 300 square feet is required from 255-11-63 of the town code in order to allow an affordable accessory apartment to be 900 square feet, where 600 square feet is the maximum allowable, and any other relief necessary. This is in an A residence zone. The flood zone is X, the secret class is type 2. In council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
An affidavit that the mailings went out on the 6th day of August and that the posting went up on the 6th day of August. So the paperwork appears to be in order.
Okay, Vice Chair Delaney. Oh, I neglected to mention that Board Member Tim Brenneman is away this week and obviously not here. And this is in his district, and Vice Chair Delaney is picking up, pinch hitting for him. Thank you, Roy.
All right, so board members, I was at the site and you can see the photo of the posting, which is properly posted. I'll let you know that I did not feel it was necessary, being that it's a basement variance to go inside the house and take photos.
Yeah.
So I took a few shots just of the surroundings in the neighborhood. Sure, I didn't take a lot off for the shots on this. I didn't think it was necessary. So the next photo. Well, this is a house looking into the driveway. You see that the house. Scanning to the right, you can see this is a pretty heavily wooded area. You can see the neighboring house. Scanning to the right, you can see down the street to the right. Again, it's pretty heavily wooded. And this is across the street. So that's basically all I have for this. Again, it's a basement, square footage variance.
Yeah. Okay, any questions, board members? Okay. Okay, do we have the applicant or the agent for the applicant here? Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman Whalen,
Wheelan.
members of the board. Good to see you.
Good evening.
I'm Diane Leverrier with Jordan Leverrier PC, 257 Canterville Road, East Hampton, New York, appearing with Dr. Schoenfeld this evening on this application. The application is pretty straightforward, 300 square foot variance where 600 square feet is the maximum. I had an opportunity to look at the technical analysis memorandum that was prepared. And I agree with most of the planning board's comments, which I thought were, once again, very straightforward. I mean, there's no exterior changes required to accommodate the apartment. They reference the section of the town code pertaining to affordable accessory apartments and the rationale for allowing them. And, you know, there's a demonstrated need for moderate income rental housing in the town of East Hampton. As we all know, Dr. Schoenfeld has been working here, living here for quite some time. The proposed apartment is going to be a one-bedroom apartment. Will house her son and daughter and hopefully their newborn child. And they too work in the community. He works in irrigation. The daughter works as a real estate agent. So in terms of something that conforms to the purpose of the accessory apartments that were set forth by the town board, I think that this is certainly in conformance with those standards. With regard to the variance itself, you all are aware of the standards, but as was indicated, this basement exists. Nothing needs to be changed on the exterior in order to accommodate this variance. It's not substantial, especially to the extent that the property is 31,000 plus or minus square feet, and the minimum is 20,000 square feet. There won't be any impact on the surrounding neighborhood. Most of the neighbors probably won't even see it and won't even notice a difference. I noted some of the conditions that the planning department recommended prohibiting the apartment from being rented seasonally in the future, as well as requiring it to comply with all of the requirements of affordable accessory apartments. We have no objection to those, and we're amenable to those conditions. So unless the board has any
Okay.
other questions for me.
Thank you, I do. How many bedrooms in the existing house?
Three.
Three?
3 bedrooms in the
Yeah, so do you, and do you know the
existing-
capacity of the sanitary system?
Um,
Don't know that.
So you would really need to know that. That would have to be known. I imagine, I imagine it's a 4-bedroom. And we can wait for Dr. Schoenfeld perhaps can get up and speak on the record, but, you certainly would have to know that. And, that can be determined, by using one of the companies to test it out and find out if they were an engineer.
yeah, I think we could take a quick look at the, Suffolk County Department of Health standards.
Or you can go back to the records when you got a building permit. It should be in the building department files. When you got a building permit, you needed a sanitary approval.
Right, well, we
And that
have to come
approval
here.
would say, on the stamp, it'll say how many bedrooms.
Correct,
So we're
Right.
going to need to know that information for one.
of course.
Right.
But
And then-
first, the variance would be required, and then the
But
building
we can-
department would require the Department of Health Services approval prior to issuing the building permit.
Or you'd have to upgrade your system to accommodate.
May have to upgrade the system.
Right. I just wondered if you want to address the issue. You understand that the town set the 600 square foot maximum size for reasons. I wonder if you just want to address that.
I think in this case, there was a concern that was raised by Mr. Borsak in the planning memorandum with regard to setting a precedent. I don't think that there's any huge precedent being set here. The basement is what it is. It's the size that it is. It just makes sense that it accommodates this size accessory apartment. We're not asking, she's not asking the board to allow her to expand her footprint in any way. She's
But that's
not,
not the issue.
That's not the issue,
The
yeah.
issue is the maximum square footage in a basement, existing basement, no matter whether the basement can fit it or not. If the basement could be twice the size, then you can't have twice the size basement as a build out. So that explanation, that's gonna be a hurdle for us to get over. Is I understand that the house is not being expanded, but that's not the issue right here before us. The issue before us is, how are we gonna get over the precedent, the uniqueness of this case and set that precedent? Because again, the foundation would be twice the size, and you still only allowed 600 square foot
See, and the town
finished
said-
basement by code. So that's gonna be difficult for us to wrestle with, right? So
well,
you have to,
understood. Yes, I understand that. And, I know when you're talking in the context of just a basement renovation and how large is the basement going to be and how many people are going to be living there. But we're talking about a 1-bedroom accessory apartments. There's a provision for accessory apartments that's explicitly set forth in the town code, basically for this purpose, to allow
No
people
problem.
within the town of East Hampton to have affordable accessory apartments in the town of East Hampton. Yes, this is slightly larger than what is the maximum permitted by the town board, but in many instances, the zoning board grants variances probably much more excessive than this one that's being requested. There's, there's proper ingress and egress. There have been no issues with regard to safety or building code or anything, violations or anything like that. The planning board memorandum said that specifically. There's nothing with regard to the actual basement itself that suggests that this is going to be planned in a way that's unsafe or planned in a way that's not consistent with the standards that have been set forth in the town code.
But the town code set up 600 square feet as a maximum for a reason.
and if
Which
you
is
applied
why
for,
we're
and if you
requesting-
applied for a permit for
Which
that,
is-
that would have been known at that time, right?
I'm sorry?
If there was a permit applied for it, that would have been known at that time that there was a 600-foot maximum.
That was known at the time, which is why we came to the board requesting additional the additional variance because
But
the
it's already
space
built.
is there.
Have you,
The space is there and it makes sense. I mean, otherwise you're basically taking an entire basement and then what are you gonna do? Create another room? That could even create some sort of, safety situation. So rather than have it broken down into different compartments, have an open space, have plenty of room. We're talking about a son, a daughter, and a young child living in a one basement accessory apartment.
I understand that.
in a-
has this all been built out when you're coming afterwards to get the approval?
No, the work is not, no.
I didn't think, because you
No,
say
no,
on thing,
there's-
existing
Okay,
office
great.
to become, let me just finish, please.
Sure.
You say existing office to become bedroom, so we would understand that it's an existing office, it's not yet a bedroom.
With a certificate of occupancy though.
Right, and then you also do say new kitchenette, so we should assume, is that an existing kitchenette or is it
No,
proposed?
it is proposed.
Okay,
Okay, nothing's been built
okay,
that has not been authorized. Everything that has been built to date, it has a certificate of occupancy. She came to this board prior to the construction, unlike some of the other applicants. Prior to the construction, to seek the board's approval to permit an insubstantial variance, which has no impact on the environment, which is not going to have, change the conditions of the exterior, which is consistent with the character of the neighborhood, and consistent with the town code and with the standards for obtaining variances.
right. But, so just so you understand, it's not minor, it's 150% of what the town board approves, so it's not minor.
It's
And there are, and the point of, finish that.
It's 50%.
Right, it's
Right.
150% the size of the 100, this is bumping up to 150. So it's
It's
a,
a 50% variance, so it's not 150%. So it's right,
50%
not excessive.
how you do the handle number, so.
First off,
Different ways to
I want to
say
make
it.
an apology. The description on the notice says to allow an affordable, which usually is referred to an existing that was already
Oh.
done.
Okay,
So that was my
understood.
assumption. So I apologize for that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
this is pre-construction.
Right,
that's why I was so.
so, okay, so you just understand that it is a 50% variance of what the
Correct.
town board allowed, and they have, in the code, and there were reasons for limiting the size of the apartments that they were allowing. Now, the town board may be changing that in the future, perhaps, we don't know, but, and
Understood, but, again, the room is there. And I think, from a planning perspective, if you're looking at something and you're thinking about ingress and egress and safety, especially when you're dealing with a basement, I think the last thing you want to do is compartmentalize things.
right, but what if, and then next week somebody can come in there, they have a 1,200 square foot basement, they could say it's already there, we're not changing this, we're not changing that. There's a
Well,
reason the town
As
sets
Mr.
the 600 square feet parameters, and I have a feeling it has to do with size and rent and future rent and things like that.
Understood, Chairman, but I know that many applicants come to this board seeking variances for homes that are thousands of square feet larger than this one, generally get them. We're talking about a person who's been working here for years, for decades, whose family works here, who's basically, I think in terms of setting precedent would be setting a decent precedent, which is we're going to act in a way that's consistent with the town code. We're as a zoning board, we are going to look at the standards that are set forth in the zoning variance. There's nothing outlandish here. There's nothing, again, excessive. It's consistent with the purpose for which which has been written into the code, and it is consistent with the standards for obtaining a zoning variance.
Again, the person possibly coming with a 1,200 gets to say the exact same thing, is my point.
Perhaps, every application is different. And again, this is, when you look at the size of the property itself, it's 31,000 square feet, right? It's a 20,000 square foot minimum. You look at the fact that it's already there, nothing new is being constructed, and there's not going to be any impact on the neighborhood. No one's going to notice this.
And the other factor, as the chairman brought up earlier, though, too, is the intensity of use is going to be greater with another apartment, and that goes back to the septic system. So,
Well, you know, we will obviously have to address the issue of any septic upgrade if necessary, and that would be dealt with, you know, by the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, and the building department would be overseeing that. But, you know, before we even get to that point, we have to see if this board would authorize the variance.
Right, right.
I just like to say that, from my point of view, everything you've said about the usage of the space makes a lot of sense. There's not a problem with that. And I think the character of the applicant is obvious, and we know that her background in the community. I don't have a problem with anything except for the fact that the town has a 600 square foot limitation on this, and if we begin to approve that, I don't think it opens a door. And if we don't want to use the word precedent, that's fine, but I think it is a precedent, and I think we're not in a position to be changing town policy. Now, when you mentioned that there are people who come in, there are different codes we follow, and we have to make interpretations based on those codes. And this one here, we could have quite a few people in the town suddenly saying, maybe my basement could be turned into a usable apartment. And that's a great idea for helping out with housing in this town. Again, the point you've made. But I don't know that I'm comfortable as a member of the board saying that it's within our power to just extend that and then open that door for any number of other people to come in here and say, well, I want to make a 1,200 foot, as the chair said, I want to make another 900 foot. If that's the case, then I think we have to look at this being a town-wide ruling, or something got to be said that backs up the idea that the town is behind the idea, so we can suddenly expand a long-standing standard on this and make it like that much larger. So I don't think the character of the applicant or the way in which you characterize what you hope to do here is in any way a challenge for me. I think the problem is whether or not we're in a position to suddenly just allow, as you say, a 50% increase in what has been the town's regulation up to this point.
Understood, but obviously in the future, if any applicant were to come before this board, well, first of all, with regard to that point, Mr. Boysack made the point, variances in relation to accessory apartments are very rare in front of the ZBA, with possibly only 2 since the legislation was passed. And I mean, the idea that, you know, people are just going to start rushing into this board, first of all, they'd have to have a space that's adequate, they'd have to have a space that's safe, and they'd have to have a basement that basically meets all of the requirements in terms of fire code, building code, safety code, and everything else.
Right.
I'm not, you know, I don't know what every house looks like in the town of East Hampton, and I don't think she should be pitted against every other, you know, person in the town of East Hampton. I think if you know, application by application, if you look at this application specifically with regard to the space, the way it's set up, not every accessory apartment in the future, if people do decide to come to this board and actually, well, I mean, at least go to the building department and require or request an accessory apartment, not every accessory apartment is going to be in a basement. That's, you know, but in this case, it happens to work for this particular residence. And it works in a way that's consistent with the code, and it works in a way that is consistent with the standards for granting variances. And I can go through the standards one by one, but I'm sure the board is, you know, well aware of those standards.
So,
in terms of the standards, you know, set forth in the town code, this is very straightforward.
Then you could add, is it the minimum necessary is one of the standards. And, you know, you probably know that the way you could get around this without being before this board is if you put a permanent wall at the 600 square foot parameter that the town board has set, and made it that became storage, and you had a Bilco door that went down to the store with the new storage area. And as you know, these would be inspected every year by the fire marshal.
Right.
So you could skip the whole variance thing if this were carved back to meet the 600 square feet. So that's one point. The other point is, we all know Dr. Schoenfeld's contribution to our community, and we appreciate that. But this board, you know, we do not give variances on the character of the applicant. That's
I understand that completely, and I
Yeah.
don't expect this board.
No,
to
I know
give-
you're not. I'm
give-
just putting
give
that out there
variance
because you
here.
mentioned, just so
You know, the standards
other
are what
thing
they
is-
are, you know.
Yeah, we all know that. And the other thing is, I've been chairman for 7 years and we've never, something like this has never come before us. There are hundreds of people in our town, as we know, that have basements. Most every basement I know has a stair down and a Velcro door out, which would allow the two means of egress. So, what we're not trying to bully up on you here. We're trying to let you know the hurdles we have to jump here because the town board set a parameter of 600 square feet. And again, to my point, the next person comes in with 1,100, 1,200, they could use the same arguments you did.
Well,
I
not
just
if they
wanna-
came in with a 1,200, because that would be even more expensive. That would be 100%.
Well, I know that, or I know, I'm saying that, but this is a 50% variance. So I just want to say that so it's on the record, so you know what this board has to deal with and
I understand, I
what
understand.
our decisions will be focused on.
Any more questions?
I don't think so. Anyone?
Can I just ask, the previous usage for this space was as an office space, and that was,
Yes.
you was a C of O granted for that
Yes,
as usage?
the house has a certificate of occupancy.
Yeah. So there is
And
no
it's current.
problem with any of the pre-existing conditions as they sit now in the basement.
Everything has been done to code.
Thank you.
Terry, go ahead.
Yes, if this were to be approved, okay with the recommended project conditions? Question about
Absolutely,
the
yes. Mhm.
Covenant, and it would not be rented season.
Sure, and,
Just an-
similar to what they do with artist studios, I mean, if the board wanted to include some sort of, requirement that they have the opportunity to come in and inspect once a year, I mean, I think we'd be amenable to that.
And the whole,
I mean, they do that with artist studios, so,
who has an artist studio?
no, I said, the board does that, or the town does that with
Sure,
artist
sure.
studios. Yeah, no artist studio. Let's not complicate things.
So the rest of the footprint is crawl space? Is that correct? The rest of the footprint?
The rest of you're talking about the house or the
The
basement
footprint of the
itself?
house. It says on your plans, crawl space beyond.
Yes. Yep.
It's crawl space, just to make sure.
Yeah.
That wasn't a drafting error or something. Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't sure which.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We'll hear from the public now. Anyone in the public?
Plan.
Oh, planning department, sorry, I apologize. They had their hands up and I got it. We'll give you a chance next, okay?
Good evening, Tyler Borsak for the planning department.
Good evening, Tyler. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. So this application is in order to allow an affordable accessory apartment in the basement of this existing residence. This is a fairly unique application for the board. It was mentioned there have been at least 2 others before the board dealing with affordable accessory apartments. But both of those had to do with the size of the property itself, not the size of the apartment. So they were like 600 square foot apartments or something along those lines, but on a smaller lot than allowed.
How long was that before the town board changed that? They changed the size of the lot?
But one of them I had, it was named under Baskin. It was in Springs. I can't remember where. And I think it was under lot size before the town increased it or decreased the requirement for it in the house.
Right.
So now it's 20,000 square foot for it attached to the house, and then 30,000 if it's a detached structure. And I think at the time it was a higher number, and they may even comply now, if I'm remembering correctly. The other one was an easement. Yes. Yes, I think both of them were. And the other one was on Queens Lane, I think. And that was more recently. I think that was Trevor Darrell was the name of the applicant. And it was, I think it was a slightly undersized property for a detached accessory apartment.
In the garage, yeah, above the
Right,
garage.
correct.
Yeah.
Right. So the pertinent section for this in the town code is the design requirements, which are under section 255.11.63H1, which states the affordable accessory apartment shall be a minimum of 300 square feet and not exceed 600 square feet. The town board clearly set a maximum apartment size at the creation of this law, and by approving this variance, the zoning board could be setting a fairly significant precedence moving forward. There does not appear to be any significant unique circumstances about this parcel which would set it apart from other properties moving forward, potentially setting a new maximum apartment size based on that precedence. This precedence may be somewhat something that is a better avenue for the town board to address instead of through the zoning board of appeals. That being said, the planning department does encourage housing for moderate and low incomes. There's a significant shortage of affordable housing within the town for community members who work within the community. However, the zoning board needs to weigh this application carefully, considering the implications it could have. The application is not proposing to make any outward changes to the existing residence, as we've discussed already, and it will maintain its single-family appearance. The only significant interior changes to the basement appear to be installing the new kitchen in an existing space, moving a small wall, and converting the existing office into a bedroom. The basement appears to have adequate ingress and egress, has an existing bathroom, laundry facilities, an existing living space. The parcel is 31,963 square feet, or 20,000 square feet is the required size. While the lot area is sufficient to meet the code requirements, it may not be uniquely large enough to consider that a reason for establishing this precedent. The board should discuss any additional mitigation. I know the applicants are okay with what we proposed. But if the board had any additional ideas, we certainly, certainly something to discuss. Other than that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Tyler. Any questions, board members, for Tyler?
No.
Okay, thank you for your work on this, Tyler. Now we'll hear from the public. Yes, sir. Do you want to get up and speak? Take your time. So what we ask you to do, if you please, is introduce yourselves with your name and address, and then if you are not an attorney, I will have to swear you in.
I'm not an attorney.
Okay. You're an attorney? Okay, and who's speaking first? If you could, wait, okay, if you could give us your name and address, please.
I'm Diane Harris Brown,
Okay,
and we live at 17 Livery Lane.
okay,
We've been there for 30 years.
okay.
And we're
So it's Diane-
neighbors.
That's fine. So you got that, Laura? It's Diane Harris Brown, is that correct?
That's correct.
Because these things will have to take the minutes and all. So,
That's fine.
okay, if you could raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do,
I knew you would. Thank you.
I swear.
Go ahead, please.
My concern is that in the course of time that we've lived on Livery Lane, for some years ago, and I don't know exactly how many, maybe 10 years ago, this residence was being used as the place of business for a landscaping operation. And there were trucks and heavy equipment coming and going constantly,
You mean
starting
the basement?
early in the morning.
You mean the basement?
The whole house.
I'm sorry. You can
That,
speak, sir, too. We'll just introduce yourself. You can speak.
Jerry Brown, 17 Livery Lane, East Hampton, New York. I am an attorney.
Thank you. So that way you can speak as well, but maybe we'll let your wife speak and then you can speak, so it's not. Go ahead, please, ma'am. Go ahead. Continue, please.
it's not that we have any objection to a living space in the basement. The size is your discretion. But when I first saw the notice that they were looking for, Dr. Schoenfeld was looking for a variance, somehow I was very afraid that the operation of this landscaping business might be returning, because the neighbors had to band together to get that stopped. And it was definitely
So there were trucks and all that sort of thing. and
trucks
parked there and all that.
and people, workers
Littering
being
the streets.
loud and noisy and littering. And it was definitely a disruption to a very quiet neighborhood. And it's entirely possible that nobody's thinking of bringing that business back, but I have noticed they cleared away more space around the driveway. And if it's simply a residence for a young family, it's one thing, but if there is the potential for that, those occupants to be operating a landscaping business or any other business that would be disruptive to the peace and quiet of the neighborhood, we would have to object.
I would point out that recently the surface has been resurfaced, the driveway, which is probably about wider than most driveways to accommodate trucks and so forth. Our major concern is just the fact that the workers that came there would drop litter and such in the driveway and in the streets. And they did mitigate it by putting up high
More
screening, but that has now grown up where you can now see through it again. You can see clearly on the driveway. And I'm just would be offended if all of a sudden we start seeing commercial trucks there again. If we have assurance that there won't be any commercial trucks, I feel fine. I have no problem with the increased size, whatever it might be. I think, by the way, the increased size, it's sort of limited to 20 in one school district. So I don't think that's going to be a real big precedent. It shouldn't be against her necessarily. But that's not our purview.
Sure. And again, we're not code enforcement here, but you mentioned the clearing, and actually I'm looking at the survey, and we'll let the attorney or the applicant get up to speak to these issues, certainly. But I do notice, and I'll ask the applicant's attorney to discuss allowable clearing is 17,991 square feet, and existing is 20,819. And you said you witnessed some recent clearing at the site?
No, not clearing. I say they recently repaved, it looks like.
Oh, I thought you had said they cleared some more as well.
And the driveway happens to be exceptionally wide to accommodate the trucks. And I'm just afraid, basically, that all of a sudden trucks may start appearing there again. That's my only concern, really. I have no problem. I like the idea that the families moving in. There's nothing wrong with that idea. The whole concept is a fine idea. I just would like to be assured that they're not going to have Dr. Schoenfeld's husband or her children not to start the landscaping business again.
Yeah, we're understandable. Thank you for coming out. We appreciate your input.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
When
Please.
did that landscaping business exist there on that site?
Probably about 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was before the ownership?
No,
Dr. Schoenfeld was
her husband.
owner and I don't know.
And when did it
Her
cease?
husband or her
How long
partner.
ago?
1990.
Yeah, you can't speak for the audience, so we'll let you get up and address that.
No, it's been quiet since then.
Okay.
It's no problem. Our fear was just that that's going to come back again. That's
Right, okay, we understand. Well, thanks for coming out.
Screening down or some sort of shrubbery lower.
It's not gonna happen.
Oh.
Okay. I
Okay,
don't think the
Thank you.
town would allow that.
thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. Would you like to make a response?
I know Dr. Schoenfeld would like to speak to the history there with regard to the trucks. Obviously, if there's an overclearing area, that's something that would have to be addressed prior to the building department issuing.
Yeah, I
the
was gonna
CO.
say, yeah.
Obviously, the residents will have to comply with the requirements for residential uses in the town of East Hampton. So,
Right.
surely if there are trucks or any kind of, there are limitations on what residences can do when businesses operating out of residences. And anyway.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I'll go ahead. I'll swear Dr. Schoenfeld into the. Good evening.
Good evening.
Do you want to give your name and address for the record?
Dale Schoenfeld, 6 Livery Lane, East Hampton.
Okay, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I do remember when my husband opened his own irrigation business. He was working for Whitmore Worsley and they were having financial problems and they cut his salary and took his benefits and he left and he opened his own business. It was the month after my son was born. He's now 31 years old. And we were strapped financially and within a year he rented space on 114 and moved the business into that space.
Okay,
And there's absolutely no intention of him running the business out of my home.
sure. I actually was thinking it was just a few years ago, but it's understandable that your neighbors would want to come out. We thank you for your participation. Thank you, Dr. Schoenfeld. Okay, I think we've spent a lot of time on this. We're good, right? You're okay? I mean,
I think so.
yeah, okay. Okay, do you want to go ahead?
Sure, therefore I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to close the hearing in the public record for Gail Schoenfeld, 6 Livery Lane, East Hampton, New York, 11937. Subject tax step number 300-184-05-43.
And I concur. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, our next public hearing is Michael Carrazza is the applicant. Michael D. Carrazza. The lot size and location is 125,459 square feet at 421 Sag Harbor Turnpike in East Hampton, tax map number 300-166-5-10.3. Excuse me, the description here is to allow an existing swimming pool patio to remain within side yard setbacks. The relief sought is one variance from 255-11-10 dimensional setbacks of 8.4 feet is required to allow an existing swimming pool
Chair.
patio.
Could you, that, we've corrected that? It's not 8.4?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes, it's not, it's 11.6, right. There's a typo there, it's 11.6 feet is required to allow an existing swimming pool patio to remain 38.4 from the side yard feet from the side yard lot line where 50 feet is required. This is in an A3 residence zone, and the flood zone here is X, and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
I have an affidavit that the mailings went out on the 5th day of August. And I have, the affidavit also says this posting was done on the 5th day of August, and the paperwork appears to be in order.
Thank you. Okay, once again, Vice Chair Deline is pinch hitting for Board Member Brenneman.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, I'll do the report for Mr. Brenneman, and you see the first picture. The property was properly posted, and I was glad to see it was posted at 114 because this is a long common driveway that goes down. And members, if you will, as we go through this, it's going to be important to look at the survey because the survey is sort of gives it. I mean, it's going to be hard to understand the orientation without understanding that. So, next photo. So this is the entrance into the common drive that goes down to, I think there's 8 lots, 8 houses on this, 7 or 8, I forget what it was. But you'll see that there's numbers on the side there. I think I counted 8. Go ahead, next photo. So this is the driveway going into both gates service this residence. And this is the entrance into the house.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking, can you go back one?
Yeah.
I was looking down.
Go back one, Tyler.
If you were Tyler or Eleni,
That is
thanks.
the entrance into the house.
Okay, good, got back in, yep.
Next photo. Looking, this is going toward, now the picture, you're going to walk towards the right-hand side, the left-hand side of that house into the backyard. There's a photo showing that. Next photo. So this now is the photo of the pool patio that's in question. It's the left side of this patio, which happens to be facing the side of the survey with the common driveway. Just so you get the orientation. Yeah, it's a little, I struggled with it. That's why I'm pointing that out.
Yeah.
And next photo.
Yep.
Again, looking closer at the pool patio area where it's in question.
Actually, I'm gonna
And
ask you.
also to look at the screening involved. Again, very heavily wooded area here.
Mhm. Let me ask you one more time. I want to take one more look at the last slide, if you would, Eleni.
There,
I just want to look at something here, if you could hold that.
that's the pool house,
Right,
which is on the survey.
right, yes. Okay, thank you.
That's the area where it's in question.
Yep.
Closer look at the pool house. Pool house, if you look at the survey, it's split.
Yeah.
And next question. Now I'm standing back towards the pool house, looking back at the residence. I think that's the last photo I have.
Okay, thank you, Roy. Any questions, board members for Roy?
No.
Okay, thank you. Do we have the applicant or the applicant's agent? Good evening.
Good evening, I'm Michael Carrazza, I'm the homeowner, I'm the applicant.
Okay, good evening. Are you an attorney, sir?
I'm not,
If you could raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Go on, please. Good evening.
Well, I think it might be helpful just to give a little bit of background of why we're here today. This is a house I purchased 22 years ago, and I've been in the process of redeveloping it. When I bought the home, the pool where it's located now is in the same spot.
Okay.
And there was an existing patio before this construction. I went back and looked at the old surveys. When the building permits were applied for, the setbacks weren't written on the original surveys that were submitted. So when this was reconstructed, the pool was converted from vinyl to gunite, and that required the old patio to be taken up. The new patio was built around the same place, but the configuration here is more squared off and symmetric versus the other one, which was round. We didn't realize until we prepared the final surveys and submitted them that we were inside the setback. I believe that the original pool was also inside the setback, and nobody knew that all these years. So it was a surprise to us, and we didn't realize it until we were getting our final inspection done.
Yeah, let me interrupt you. Good. We'll interrupt on these different points. So first of all, just so I'm clear for the record, you said you built I understand you went from vinyl to gunite on the pool. And you're saying you built the pool in the exact same footprint?
Yeah, in fact, even a bit smaller, but the pool was there in the 80s before we owned the property.
Right, because actually at our planning, I was discussing with Delaney, there's no setback, but it looks to me, I don't even know if that pool, your corner of the pool meets the 50 feet to my eye, but, so that's one issue. And then do you say you have a survey of the original building permit for your patio, but there was no setback? Is that what you
So when the permits were filed for, it was with the original pool and patio on the survey, and there were no setbacks from that surveyor written on the survey.
So you did not get a permit for this patio?
We got a permit for the pool and the patio, but when the plans were submitted, the setbacks weren't written on the
Okay, I get that,
survey.
but when the plans were submitted, what I'm trying to get at, are these the plans that you submitted? I know that setbacks weren't written, but did you submit the plan or the survey that showed what we're looking at as far as the patio?
Well, the answer is yes. However, I don't think the detail of the entire patio was laid out when the permits were filed for several years ago.
Yeah, I'll ask Eleni, do you know if that survey's in the file? The building permit for the pool and the patio, is that on file, Eleni?
The patio wasn't shown on the survey.
Okay, so we can wait for Eleni to pull that up, what she has.
Yeah, and I don't know that this matters, but we found
Well, it
a
does
lot.
matter because you're getting a variance for a setback.
No, what I'm going to say, I don't know if it matters. We found a lot of errors in the original survey. It was done by Pat Secafico, which was the surveyor before I owned the property. When we started finding errors in the survey, we changed surveyors and hired David Saskis. And he now has a proper survey. And he said many of the dimensions on the original survey were off by several feet.
Really?
Yeah,
That's kind of shocking.
yeah.
Continue, please.
So we found out when they came to do the final inspection, and it didn't seem like there were a lot of options other than taking it up or filing for variance. Now, as you saw in the pictures, we heavily screened the back end of the patio, pool patio, well before we knew any of this. This was done years ago, and it was complemented with indigenous plantings that were added as part of the final construction. Again, all this was done before even knowing that we were within the setback. I think what is most important is the uniqueness of the sideline property. On the adjacent side of the southeastern sideline, there are 6 easements for the 6 properties that sit on top, 3 on the right, 3 on the left.
Mm-hmm.
And in those 6 easements, which are the flagpoles for those 6 properties, there was a common road built long before I owned the property and paved, and that services all 8 properties on that street. So there's about 160 feet, which is 3 times the setback between the pool patio and the next property over. Now, technically, those flagpoles are somebody's property, but those people live, hundreds of feet on top of my property, and they're not adjacent. It's just a flagpole. You'd see that in the text map.
Okay. So I'm just checking something on the TAM here. So when did you say you purchased the land?
But there was an existing home there, and with the pool, and I bought that in June of 1999.
Okay. So when you bought that, I'm looking at the TAM, and I'm going to talk to you about both the pool and the pool house and the breezeway, because this is all on one property, and when we see properties, we have to deal with what's going on there. So did you know about when you bought the property, did you know about the CNRs for the garage not being habitable space?
Not at all. In fact, the first time I'd seen it was when Lenny sent me over the TAM. It's the first time I've ever seen it or even heard about
When
it.
you were at your closing, you didn't have the CNRs at the closing?
I didn't, and I hired Don Sharkey, who did the home inspection before I closed.
It would be on a title search, not a home inspection.
Right.
Well,
I was talking about the closing, having your attorney at the closing, when you bought the property, I imagine you had the CNRs there.
I went through all my documentation that I got from closing.
But nonetheless, when you went back, when you built out the garage, did you get a building permit for that?
Yes.
You did. With the second floor garage on. I mean, to put the habitable space up there and connected.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me one
Yeah.
second. The garage was reconstructed, but the second floor was not touched up on top because they couldn't hold the second floor. There was only 2x6 joists,
Yeah.
and it was only used for storage. So it was really decorative on the outside and on the inside. And we put dormers on to make it look nice. That was about it. This set of permits that are open today is a complete reconstruction that actually attaches the second floor of the main house to a new second floor over the garage. And the garage was completely reconstructed with a whole new floor system. Second floor is a whole complete redevelopment.
Right. And you got a building permit for that, I see.
Yes, and it's been inspected all the way through.
Right. And it's I don't know if you know, but the pool house really is not conforming to the current code right now. You did receive, do you have the plan? If you don't, I know you don't have them with you, and I can ask Lenny, but. For the pool house, yeah. Yeah. So my point is, you're here, I know you're here just for the variance for the pool patio. But this board cannot grant variances when there are other issues on the property that need to be looked into. Okay. So I'm just recommending that you are going to want to work with Lenny and the building department and look into these outstanding issues there.
Can we go through what those are? Because I'm very unclear of what's outstanding.
Well, this property had a CNR that there would be no habitable space above the garage.
But the garage was an accessory structure during that point in time. I've actually corrected something I didn't even know was wrong. The garage is no longer an accessory structure. There's not a breezeway that connects the garage to the house like is written in the TAM. The garage is now part of the house. It's livable space on top. It's connected on top. It's not an accessory structure anymore. Therefore, the conditions and the requirements don't even apply anymore because it's no longer an accessory structure.
Oh, thank you. You have this here, right?
These were the issues.
Right.
So we got a permit based on the drawing.
Right. So, sir, these plans that are in for the building, for the pool house, is that exactly the way it was built to your knowledge?
They are.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
And we made sure we got prior approval from the building department before we constructed the pool house.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions, board members? The applicant? No.
Yeah, I just think that it's a confusing one because you have an issue building permits or whether it's a standing CNR that should have prevented you from doing something. Maybe it was done innocently on your part because the issue was building permit. Nonetheless, we have to respect what the original CNR was placed there for. And then additionally, the set of prints that were submitted for the pool house, if these were in fact the ones that were approved with your permit and that's the ones that have been submitted, then that also variance with some rules that we have to follow. So it's a little bit of a precedent.
Yeah, and this is something that I understand why you're kind of shaking your head a little bit but this is that we know, currently now this sort of configuration of the two buildings, I believe these are about 100 square feet each, I believe.
Yes.
Being connected with the wall and a complete roof, now that's, pardon me, that's not the way things are being approved, just because we had a recent situation application. Can
Chair,
you remind me-
perhaps,
Go ahead.
if I could suggest, perhaps I could ask the chief building inspector to opine on those two matters.
Yeah, I think that would
and
be
get
great.
back to
Yeah.
the board and to the applicant,
Yeah, I think that's a
and
great
leave
idea.
the record open for that, and then also give him a little time if he wanted to respond to that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Nancy, council. So our council will just check with the building department, just go into this. I mean, obviously you make a valid point, I would say, with regard to, the CNR was for the detached accessory structure, and you came back and did a complete redevelopment, and also the building department. It sounds like way back when we didn't pick up on that, but, so I think that's a good solution for now. We would close the public hearing, unless other issues come up through the night, and leave the written record open for those kind of comments, and you would have time to respond and that sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to, in closing, just mention, we thought we did the right thing by going to the building department and reviewing the plans with them, and they actually recommended changes. And so whatever those changes were incorporated in the plan that was built for the plan as noted.
Yeah, what changes did they recommend?
It had to do with the square footage and the way it was divided up.
Oh, the garage or the pool
The
house?
pool house. The garage, well, let me see the pool house for 1 second, because it's comment about the
Yeah.
garage as well. If there was an issue with the way the pool house is constructed, it would have been nice to know when we opened up the permit or not gotten a permit for
No,
it.
I understand.
And I also want to mention that if something changed after the permit was granted and approvals, normally you kind of fall under the time when the permit is open, which is fairly typical of building department. Moving over to the garage, as I mentioned, we had no knowledge of any of the restrictions or conditions. I was surprised when I saw it, being a homeowner for over 20 years and have pretty good files. However, the solution of what we constructed in the redevelopment of the home actually, we believe, made that go away. And there shouldn't be an issue anymore because it's no longer an accessory structure. And I don't think there's any debate about that.
So I would highly recommend, I see in the clearing that you've cleared within 62 square feet of the maximum allowable clearing.
Yes,
And you know that, I guess you know that.
yes.
Okay, so I would highly recommend that you cease any ideas of future clearing on this lot, so you don't have to come back before us and do a revegetation,
Agreed.
because you're maxed out.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, before we go on to the planning department, any questions, board members?
No.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening again, Lenny.
My name is Nicole for the planning department. So I'd like to start by saying, I just want to correct something. The TAM did not call that a breezeway. What I was referring to in the TAM, and maybe it was misconstrued, was originally there had been in the 1984 litigation, everything, there was a breezeway.
Yes.
And was just saying that it is larger than what was the breezeway in 1984.
Right.
So just wanted to clarify that that is not a breezeway, and we were not calling it that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And just to start that, we did note the concerns brought up just in the history of the property. So it was so that the applicant could be made aware of any issues and the board as well. We are the variance that is in front of the board right now. The planning department does not have a strong opinion on. The parcel is bordered by, I believe, 6 flag strips, and it is properly screened. As far as the building permit for the pool house, as it was in the existing conditions memo, you can see the building permit. It does appear to have been built as per the permit. And as far as the CNRs on the property, those were filed with the 1984. It was in Article 78, having to do with the construction of the garage.
Mhm,
Any
Right.
questions?
Well, your work was very thorough, and thank you for that, Eleni. Therefore, I do not have a lot of questions myself. Board members? No? Yeah?
No, I don't.
Great. Thank you for your work, Eleni. Appreciate it. I don't believe there's anyone who wishes to speak in public. Sir, if you want to have a quick final comment, it's not necessary, but I think we've gone through it all, so I'm sure. So what we will do then is we will.
Can we get it at 2 weeks so that I have a week to get the information from Ann, and I'll write a memo to the board and CC the applicant, and then give him, that gets me a week to do it, and then he would have a week to respond. And I can email that to you
Sure.
We will allow it open for 2 weeks, is that it? Or
for 2 weeks,
is
yes.
2 weeks, is a week response good for you?
Is a week.
So what's going to happen is council is going to speak with the principal building inspector and get her, discuss it with her, and we'll write you a letter, and she's going to use up a week to do that, to get an appointment, with everyone's busy. And then she will write you, or can email you a letter, copy the board. And then we would give you a week, or if you need more, to respond to whatever is in that letter. And if there's major issues and you need more time, you can certainly have. But otherwise, if it's pretty straightforward, is a week enough time for you to respond to that letter?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So we'd be leaving the record open until August 31st.
On the
All right,
30th?
so till August 30th, 31st. And if for some reason we actually don't have a meeting, when's the first meeting, council? I'm sorry, is it the 8th or something?
The 7th.
The 7th, yeah.
So as long as,
Should we
if you
leave it
needed
open
more
until the
time,
6th
just,
of September, just so it gets in before we get back. Council, what do you all think, board members?
if it's in by the 31st, then if he needs more time, we could grant it on the 7th.
Yeah, okay. So what you do is you'll have that time to get the letter back on August 31st. If there's some legal issue that's a big deal, you can simply, by the 31st, write a letter requesting this board to give you more time to deal with your response. Okay? You can ask for whatever you need. Depending on if there's an issue at all, there may be no issue. Okay?
Yeah.
That sound good?
I think that's great, and I appreciate everybody's time and attention on this, and if there's something that's not right, I've been fixing things that were out of compliance in this house since I bought it, so if there's
Yeah.
anything left, I'd love to get it resolved and cleaned up, so I appreciate your help. on
Thank
this.
you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, great. Now,
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
oh, yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing, but leave the record open for August
Yep.
31st for Michael Carrazza at 421 Sag Harbor Turnpike, East Hampton, New York, 11937. Tax map number 301-156-05-10.3.
I'll concur.
And I concur as well. Okay, and thank you, Nancy Lynn, for following up on that for us. Okay, next we have the minutes, the draft minutes of August 3rd, 2021.
August 3rd, we approved last week. Oh, August
Oh,
10th.
we did. Oh, okay.
It's August,
August 10th. these are
August
the
10th is the one. So
Right.
Wrong date on that. I
apologize. August 10th, yeah.
And I did review them, Mr. Chairman, so I would like to make, and there was a minor correction that I see Kyle and
Mhm.
did correct on the record, so make a motion for the minutes of August 10th for the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals for approval.
I'll second that
I
motion.
concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you. Thank you, Gary. Okay, let's see. Council, anything on your end?
nothing else here.
Okay. Excellent. I think we need one motion from our vice chair and
Sure, Mr. Chairman, therefore I make a motion to close the public hearing for the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals, August 17, 2021 at 7:59 PM.
Second.
who gets that second? We'll
Give it Ed, give
Give
it
it
Ed.
to Ed. And I concur as well. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, board members, Tyler, Eleni, Nancy Lynn, Laura,
Thank you, Jody.
and LTV.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you. Welcome, Laura. Did you have fun, Laura? Did you enjoy it?